So I don't know if you can see this behind me. The camera really doesn't do it justice, but we are absolutely socked in with smoke at the moment. And it is blowing in the west. Most of the west is on fire, and it's blowing in from all over, and just seems like no matter which way the wind changes, it's blowing in smoke. And this particular wind shift has brought in super heavy smoke. And if you've ever seen our view here, we have a spectacular view, and you can't begin to see that. Well, that's been the case for a week or two, where there've only been a couple of days in the last week or two where we could see the mountains. But we even have a hill that's only a mile or two away, and that one has been socked in all day. You can't begin to see it. There's even a little ridge down there. You can see one, but there's another one beyond there that you can't even see anymore. It's just amazing. And the air, you can just smell the smoke in the air. You come outside and you just about don't want to breathe. I just try and breathe through my nose. It's that bad. And I can only imagine what it would be like to be in this all the time. And so what we did was we got this air purifier that has made a huge difference. And the way this thing works, it's really quite something. It has a little indicator here that tells us what the air quality is. If it's blue, then the air quality is good. And if it's orange, then it's moderate. And if it's red, then the air quality is poor. And so that was kind of cool. And we could just see it clean the air up. When we first plugged it in, the air here in the house was, I think it was in the red, either orange or red, even though we'd been keeping the house closed up. And boy, it just cleaned it right up. Uses very little power. And this thing, if I turn it on turbo, it will really filter this air fast. It's just filtering the air is all it's doing. Sucks it in here and blows it out there. And if I turn it on turbo, it will just plow through the air. And even if it's showing that the air quality is very poor, it gets it cleaned up at least in the vicinity of the air purifier very quickly. But at this rate, one of the things that I really like about this air purifier is how energy efficient it is. I've read well, let me turn this down so you can hear me. I've read some people who have tested other air purifiers, and they use quite a bit more. This thing, so when it's on the slowest speed, it's still moving air. I mean, I can feel it moving, and it's using, I believe it's 5 watts or less. Well, in fact, I actually have it plugged into the kilowatt meter here, and it is using, yes, less than 5 watts. And so that, if you're just leaving it on all the time on maintenance mode, that might work for you. The second speed here, it is putting out, I can definitely feel that, a pretty decent amount, reasonable amount of air, 6 watts, using around 6 watts. And then if I turn it up to third speed, that's what I've been leaving it on most of the time, is the third speed. And it uses around 8 watts, somewhere thereabouts. And so I've been leaving it on just 24/7 on third speed. Now, that's because we've been dealing with such bad smoke. Once the smoke clears out and we're not dealing with this anymore, hopefully sooner rather than later, but it could be a few weeks before that happens, who knows. Once we get to that point, then I'm going to turn it on auto. And what auto does is it will use the sensor that's built into this machine to sense the air quality. And if the air quality is good, then it will put it on a very low setting where it's using very little power. And if the air quality is poor, then it will automatically speed the fan up. So it's basically adjusting the speed of the fan and the power consumption to match the quality of your air to try and keep it as good as possible while using as little power as possible. So that's really cool. And you can even turn it on nighttime mode, and it uses even less power than very, very little power, and turns the lights off and everything. It's still putting out some air, or the fan is still running. I can still feel it, but it's not much. So the other thing is plasma wave. I leave this off personally. Let's see if you can see there. So that's on and that's off. And I've been leaving this off because there's some debate about that. Evidently, there's some, what shall I say, debate about some of these devices. This particular one and some of these others, they will use a process to help break down certain chemicals and things like that in the air, and it can potentially produce ozone, which some people say that ozone airborne in the air is a bad idea, is a bad thing. I haven't had the time to do any research into it, and everybody agrees that the passive filtration just through filters is safe and is the most effective thing. And so this is kind of a little bit more of an experimental feature. So I just leave that off until I'm able to determine whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I'm not actually convinced that it does a whole lot. And then the other thing is it's got a timer on it where you can have it automatically turn off in 1 hour, 4 hours, or 8 hours there. And and the other thing I should tell you is when it is on turbo, if your air quality is really bad and you want it to get cleaned up fast, you turn it on turbo and it pumps out some air. And as far as power usage, I find it's usually somewhere in the mid 40s, 45 watts, 45 to 50 watts, something like that, somewhere thereabouts. But like I said, I leave it on the speed 3 out of 4 most of the time, with the smoke as bad as it is, and that's been working great for us. What a difference this thing makes. I mean, it's been huge. And you can see this is the outer filter here. I'm not going to take it apart, but inside is a carbon filter and then a HEPA filter inside of that. So this little machine, we're really happy with it, and less expensive than some of the comparable ones that Home Depot and some of the other stores have, the Honeywell air purifiers that you might find locally. This, as far as I can tell, is better and less expensive also, so great option.